Welcome to the You Love to See It podcast, coverage of your Seattle Mariners. Hello and welcome once again to the You Love to See It podcast, coverage of your Seattle Mariners. I am your host, Jake. You can find me on Twitter at Mariners Jerseys, and you can find all episodes of this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and Samsung Audio. But who gives a shit about Amazon? Or not Amazon. We like Amazon. Samsung is one we don't care about. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe would be appreciated. If you're listening on streaming platforms, you can leave a 5-star review and follow the show. Helps more than you know. Today, our guest is an Arizona Diamondbacks aficionado, Aaron Hughes. Hello, Aaron.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
So you can find him either at Aaron R. Hughes or at Good Morning Ball on Twitter, and his blog site, goodmorningbaseball.com, where he writes about the Arizona Diamondbacks. So you may be wondering, well, this is a Mariners podcast. Why are you having an Arizona Diamondbacks writer on? Well, 3 different reasons, okay? First, the Diamondbacks and the Mariners have been transaction partners on the most notable trades in the last year, so we're going to talk about those. 2, Aaron did grow up as a partial Mariners fan, so there's that connection. And 3, it's my show, so I have whoever I want on. So
yeah, we're good friends outside of the podcast as well. So
yeah, we DM a lot, and
ties in.
we clown on Morosi in the DMs pretty much every day at this point. So there's that bond there. But I guess to go into it, since this is a Mariners podcast, what are your ties to the Mariners and the organization in general?
Yeah, so well, I guess starting out at the beginning, my dad grew up Southern Oregon, Northern California, so he had some deep roots and ties to, well, the Pacific Northwest and I guess the Mariners too, even though he did grow up an A's fan. He used to listen to the radio broadcasts on his rides to school and stuff on a little like Walkman or whatever he had, a portable radio. So, yeah, I did have ties there, and of course I played for the Little League team for the
Nice.
Mariners when I was in Little League. So I still have that hat and the old T-shirt that they used as a uniform. So it was very low payroll stuff, very fittingly. We didn't
I mean,
have
you would
some
fit
nice
now.
gear.
Don't have to pay you too
Yeah,
much, Perfect.
exactly, minimum salary. But yeah, I always loved the Mariners. I loved the Northwest green colors and stuff too, so it was a fit, and I had some like family ties to get back to it. Obviously, I grew up Diamondbacks all the way, but you know, Mariners were always a team that really appealed to me, and I loved the players. And even though they didn't make the playoffs for a long, long, long time,
Yeah.
I always found myself watching those games and rooting for them whenever I could. So
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I do agree with you. We have the best jerseys in baseball. So, the Diamondbacks jerseys are
I agree.
nice, but I still got to give it, especially those Northwest greens are just so nice. I mean, I'm a Sunday cream enjoyer, but I will say the Northwest
Okay.
greens probably, like, in general, are the best in baseball.
I am a fan of the Northwest Greens, but I want to give a shout out to the Seattle Steelheads jerseys.
Oh,
Those are
yeah.
really nice with the
Yeah,
piping.
that's true.
Yeah, but how about those new 2024 Diamondbacks jerseys? Those black ones with the
Yeah.
teal and the red. Those look good.
Did
Those
they
look
ever
really
say
good.
why they added teal to, like, the color palette? Like, is there like
It's
a backstory to that?
Yeah, so Arizona, right? They had the sand for like the sand. They had the Sedona red because of the mountains and the rocks in Sedona. And the turquoise comes from, I guess, the turquoise rocks that are actually in Arizona. It's like a
Hmm.
big part of the culture and goes back to the Indian tribes as well and stuff. So it's always been a big part of just Arizona as a state having that turquoise and the teal. So I guess and I mean it just looks good in my opinion.
I
I
agree.
really like the clash.
Yeah, I saw like a TikTok of this guy who I guess is the one who made the all the graphics for the graphic boards inside the stadium, and kind of how he made it. And actually, I didn't even know teal was a part of their branding until I saw that TikTok.
That
I mean,
is,
it's not like I was watching Diamondback games at the time. I was still like trying to watch the Mariner games because I think I saw it like halfway through the year last year, and I was like, that's actually pretty sweet. Like it really works well. You wouldn't think that like, especially that teal. It's like
yeah.
a baby blue more. Like it's not
Uh-huh.
like when I think of teal, I think of the Northwest green, really. So it's not Northwest green. It's a lot more like light blue, but
Yeah, it's
you
like
wouldn't
this
expect
baby
it.
blue right here.
Yeah, so you wouldn't expect it
Got
to
the Corbin
work.
Carroll shirt too.
Gotta
So
respect. Yeah, we gotta represent. So, but yeah, well, let's get into the more baseball stuff. Well, we are
yeah.
already talking about baseball. Whatever. Good segue, Jake. Awesome job. So as I said before, the Mariners and Diamondbacks have been kind of partners in two, at least for Mariners fans, pretty heart wrenching trades in the last year. We'll go in chronological order. So the first one occurred on July 31st of 2023. We saw our beloved Paul Sewald go to the desert in exchange for Josh Rojas, Dominic Canzone, and prospect Ryan Bliss. So now that we had the rest of the season to kind of see how they did, what are you thinking as far as on the Diamondback side, how this fared for you guys and how it helped?
So honestly, the Paul Sewald trade, I mean, we obviously know how the Diamondback season ended up going. I don't think that there's a way that the D-backs even make the playoffs without Paul Sewald, to be honest. Kevin Ginkel ended up developing as like a very high leverage setup man, and I'm pretty sure that we would have seen him break out in a way even without Paul, but I think that setup man gave him that protection at the back end of that bullpen to come in and not have to get those last three final high leverage outs. And I think that was big for him in a way. And just having a guy back there to really lock down the ninth inning was huge. And it was something that we really haven't had in years in the Diamondbacks, if ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think back to the original World Series run of the 2001 Diamondbacks, they had Young Kim in the back end of that bullpen, and uh, I mean he also struggled a lot in the World Series. So sadly, another crossover between the two runs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
man, just two guys that were all in all pretty elite closers for the team, and I'm really glad that we have Paul Sewald for another year at least. And Mike Hazen was very big on the fact that, hey, look at us. Like, we finally don't have to worry about our bullpen for an offseason, which has been a recurring issue over and over again for this team. So, uh, can't say enough about what Paul's done from a leadership standpoint, from all I've heard in the clubhouse, from a player standpoint. And even though he's had his hiccups, which every player and every pitcher does, he's been awesome for this team.
Yeah, and I think with Paul too, when we're thinking about the loss that the Mariners had from him leaving, you could kind of feel it a bit. Paul is a big leadership guy, and he really helps, especially the up and comers and the newer relievers, kind of probably feel more comfortable. Granted, I'm not in the bullpen, so I don't know for sure, but that's the vibe I get. And you saw it a little bit with like I want to say Saucedo said something after the Seawald trade, and I think it was just pretty obvious that he was that anchor in our bullpen. And when he left, like we still had Munoz, we still had Brash. Like in general, our bullpen was fine in September and like after he left, but you could feel that presence gone, especially with Munoz kind of struggling the way he did, especially in the second half of the year. It, you kind of wanted to have a Seawald there to be that, I guess that arm that took the pressure off Munoz the same way that you said with like Seawald did with Ginkel. It's like you could feel that Munoz just really wasn't like ready to be that closer role. It seemed like a lot of his issues, granted, he had like one injury or like a weird thing with his hip, I think, but you could tell a lot of it was partially mental. Um, and so that kind of leaves a question of where we're still kind of need a bullpen person to acquire this off season. Granted, it's at the lowest end of the priority list, I would say, but I think we felt that. Now, when we're talking about who we acquired, so Rojas, Canzone, and Bliss, one reason I really want to bring this up because I think Canzone specifically has been a really big hot topic in the Mariners side this offseason. So I'll definitely get your thoughts on that. But if I were to start with Rojas first, I felt we really saw that flash of potential towards the end, especially. I mean, he's a lefty line drive hitter, which works well with T-Mobile. In September, he hit 263 for his batting average, which was good. And next year he's not going to have that injury season that he had last year. So I think before then he was a pretty solid and consistent, like 260-ish average guy. I think he's going to help a lot more than we think. I because I still see people talk about the second base role and like how that's a big hole, but I honestly have that faith in Rojas at this point. And you know Rojas pretty well, so I guess if you want to talk to who he is as a player and ease our minds a little bit or everyone else's minds a little bit.
I mean, Josh Rojas, he was part of the heart and soul of that Diamondbacks team. Not only is he an awesome guy to have as a player, because of that utility that he provides, but I feel like he gets undervalued a lot. And he's really big in the clubhouse as well. We've heard about him being outspoken and talking to the young guys as well, because he does have a little bit of that major league experience at this point. He's a Phoenix guy as well, right from the heart of the city. So it was really hard to see him go. I know he was one of the community's favorite players, one of my favorite players. I saw him pitch live on Father's Day this year against the Guardians. Thanks Zach Davies for that one, making it a blowout early.
We have a
But
we have
yeah,
a dual position player. That's awesome. We have the next Otani.
oh yeah, oh 100%. I mean, he was awesome. He was nasty. He had a curveball and everything. But yeah, Josh Rojas, he's got multiple positions he can play. He didn't hit a single home run with the Diamondbacks, but that was largely because of the injury. At least I feel. We saw him unlock a little bit of that power again later in the season
Yep.
with the Mariners, but it'll be definitely interesting to see what he can do in a non-injury riddled season. And I've got a lot of faith in him figuring it out and being a part of that team that you guys can rely on going into 2024.
Yeah, and that I guess leads us into Canzone. So Canzone, as we all know, was a pretty highly regarded prospect, and he made his debut last year, and only played very briefly with the Diamondbacks before coming to us. Um, but I've seen a lot of people talking on Twitter about Canzone, considering we have those holes in corner outfield. So pretty much the idea is like we'll have to acquire one corner outfielder and then someone to platoon with Canzone for next year. And so that obviously brings up like what do we expect from him? And with Canzone, I see the potential there. I do. When he gets the barrel to that ball, it goes. There's nothing like he is going to hit the Hit It Here Cafe, and I mean he pretty much already did against the Baltimore, and so we know he has the pop, he has the power there. It's just a matter of if he can get that barrel on it. I did notice a little bit with like it seemed like outside pitches and were a bit of a struggle for him because he's opening up a lot. Definitely a pull hitter for sure. So hopefully that's something he can work on. But and then with his defense, needs a bit of work. He was better than Teoscar, so we'll give him that. But he did look pretty awkward, even if he made the play. So, but at the end of the day, like I don't even know how old he is. He's got to be what 23. Like he's
Yeah,
pretty.
he's a young guy.
Yeah, so
So
he's got time to learn how to be a good defensive outfielder, at least average. That's really all you really need, especially from a guy who's going to be platooned. So, and when I was talking in spaces with you, you were pretty high on Canzone. So, as someone who's watched him come up through the minor leagues of the D-backs, what do you have to say about him?
so Canzone's really interesting for me because I pretty much watched him since he was drafted. Um, I was so high on him this past year. I was rooting for him to get called up pretty much since the start of the season, more or less, because he was crushing balls, and I mean crushing them in Reno. And granted, it's a hitter's park up there in Reno, but man, he was raking, and I had all the faith in the world in him coming up. Um, with the defense, there is one thing: the Diamondbacks really know how to develop defenders. And I saw some good stuff with him, especially when it comes to like just getting the balls and getting him in really quickly. But that didn't really translate in Seattle from what I saw. He was a little awkward. But you know, he's young, plenty of time to figure that out, and I'm sure he'll grade out just fine in the long term. Um, but yeah, when he makes contact, the ball just flies. Like that one against Baltimore was one of my favorite home runs I saw anyone hit. Um, all of last year, absolutely pimped it. And his first major league home run came off Spencer Strider. Just
Yeah.
you know, he when he does make contact, that thing is not coming back. Um, so yeah, I mean, he had limited time with Arizona, went to Seattle right away. It was a big adjustment for him, I'm sure. He was a rookie coming up to the major leagues and getting traded immediately. Like that's just a really tough experience for a rookie. Uh, so I'm interested to see what we can get out of him. Obviously, it wasn't the showing that we would have liked
Hmm.
from a guy like Canzone coming up and getting his first taste. But I don't see there being a need to jump straight to he's a pure platoon hitter and we're never going to see that success as a major leaguer because like it takes time and we've been
Yeah.
spoiled with guys. Well, I don't want to say the word spoiled because passing, but um,
Yeah. Not
you know,
not to us
we've had
Mariners
the
fans.
pleasure we've had the pleasure of seeing guys like Julio and my guy Corbin Carroll come up and absolutely rake without a hiccup or without many hiccups for the
Hmm.
most part. And we forget that rookies sometimes just need a little time to get their footing in the major leagues. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be a bit intimidating, I'm sure. I've never done it, obviously, but you know, I'd assume that there's a bit of a jump that they need to make there, and I'm sure he'll get there eventually. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to see what we can get from him.
Yeah, and I was a little bit wrong. It looks like he's 26 actually, so a little bit older than I thought. But at the end of the day,
Yeah,
still
he's.
young. He's not in
Hmm.
his prime or anything like that. And to actually put it into perspective, that Baltimore home run wasn't even his longest of the year. The longest one was the one he hit in Oakland, that went 448 feet. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that
Yeah.
just another I guess piece of or example that he has the pop that we need. And I don't want to harp on like, oh, lefties are, better at our ballpark so much, but it's ultimately true. And he's a lefty. So it's just like, I'm excited for him this year. I feel like I've been a little overly optimistic on a lot of players because I'm like, I'm excited to see Urias. And I'm like, but the issue is I don't want to be just angry all the time and just upset all the time about our team. And it really puts into perspective, like, we have some good pieces. If what we saw last year, a lot of it was people just regressing. That was unprecedented. We had like multiple people regress. We didn't expect Teoscar to regress the way he did. Didn't expect Suarez to. France, like it just we had so many people that it just didn't work out with very well last year. That if they were just league average, I mean, we're probably in the wild card. It's hard to not have a bit of optimism. The last piece of that trade is prospect Ryan Bliss. I assume he's probably going to make his debut this year at some point. Probably would be with like an injury, most likely. But I the thing is, dude is tearing it up too in AAA. He ended the year last year with a 304 average and a 902 OPS and 540 at bats. Like tearing the cover off the ball, 23 homers. I know there's a lot of questions about his defense, and he's not like a very big guy, but I don't really think you can argue with a 304 average and 23 home runs and that OPS. So I know you haven't seen Bliss at the major league level, but I know he was pretty highly touted as well as Canzone was in the Diamondbacks org.
Yeah, so Bliss was obviously a little less talked about than Canzone in our system, but I do know that he's found a lot of success over in Seattle, and man, I am excited to see him when he does come up. Um, I think that there's a path for him to get to the major leagues this year and try to prove himself. I'm not sure about out of spring training, but I'm
No.
sure that later in the year, maybe post All-Star break, at least we could see him get a few at bats under his name. Yeah, but he's a line drive hitter. From what I've seen, I mean, I haven't watched him play a ton, but I'm sure that Bliss is another one of those guys that can probably make it work in T-Mobile Park, even with that marine layer. I mean, there's questions about his height. Obviously, a smaller guy. But when it comes to hitters, I mean, that isn't as big of a thing as when it comes to pitchers. I mean, we've seen Marcus Stroman in recent years find some success as a smaller pitcher, but when it comes to hitters, we've seen guys like Altuve come up and find massive success right in the division. No matter how you feel about him, it's a fact that he's a pretty good baseball player at this point
Yeah.
and can hit pretty well. Um, so I'm not sure that we can use that as like an excuse for Bliss, like because of his height, he won't find success. Like I'm saying that we should wait it out and see what he's able to do at a major league level, and I'm really excited for him as a player as well. A little sad to see him go in that trade, but glad that he went to the Mariners if he was going to get shipped at
Yeah.
all.
Right. Yeah, so to move on to the second trade, this one we is going to be harder to talk about because we haven't seen what this is going to look like for either team yet. So on November 22nd, I think it was like what, the day before Thanksgiving, uh, we got announced that Gino Eugenio Suarez was leaving us and going to the Diamondbacks for backup catcher Sevi Zavala and relief pitching prospect Carlos Vargas. Not a very popular move in the Mariners community at all, but and Suarez filled a really big hole for the Diamondbacks. That's at least what you told me. So,
Yeah.
yeah, what's that looking like for you guys?
I mean, going into the 2024 offseason, we had two really concerning holes to fill, right? We had the starting pitching issue that pretty much led us to having to use a bullpen game in the World Series, which is ridiculous for any
Mhm.
playoff team. But the other one was third base. We had Evan Longoria kind of filling that main role there last year, and Longo, as much as I absolutely adore the guy, and he's one of my favorite players to ever touch a baseball field, but he wasn't as good as he used to be, I guess.
Mhm.
He was an aging veteran who was there mainly for his leadership and to help develop this core. And Gino coming over basically filled that hole right away. And it was kind of crazy that we could get him for basically nothing. I mean, you say that the Mariners community was baffled by it. The Diamondbacks community was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, how did we just get this guy for nothing? Like, is there something we don't see here? And a lot of people are like, yeah, well, he does strike out, but think about it. This guy's been a consistent 30 homer hitter, or at least high power numbers, and that is something that we haven't had whatsoever. I mean, Longoria and Emmanuel Rivera didn't even add up for close to 20 home runs last year. Um, and uh, having Gino there and having that consistency in the third base position with good defense is just something that cannot be overstated for this Diamondbacks team going into the future. And yeah, I am surprised that they ended up getting that deal for that cheap when we saw that move made.
Yeah, and I mean that was kind of that's been the theme of this off season is it's not that I can't make a case on why you would move on from Gino, but in the same thing with like the Kellenic deal, it's just like why are we getting that's all we're getting
Salary.
back, right? It's like, I get it's a salary dump, but I mean, you really couldn't have gotten like one like really high prospect,
Yeah.
that so you're not, it's not affecting your payroll. I just don't get it. But so, but we'll go over who we got. So we got Sebi Savala. I'm going to go over him mainly because there's not really a whole lot to talk about, and to be fair, I'm not super excited for him either. So Sebi, if you're watching this, which you are, but if you are, I it's not personal at all. But your offense is not what we're getting you for at all. You've only been over 100 WRC plus once, and then the other two full seasons were in the 60s. So it's hard for me to feel happy about that. He has skills in his defense. His blocking ability is above average, or like way above average, and his framing is good. He's your backup catcher. He's playing once a week. He's that's what he is. I mean, especially with uh, I can't see why we would put him in our lineup more than once a week. Uh, it would genuinely be kind of malpractice if we did that. But I think there's that also, like that Blake Hunt guy that he could be competing in spring training for that backup spot. We'll see. But the one I am a bit intrigued by Carlos Vargas personally, after looking through his numbers, even though he only pitched in 5 games at the major league level. So there's not a whole lot to look at necessarily, but you know, as you guys are the defensive gurus, we're the like relief pitching and pitching gurus. So yeah, so he has some intriguing stuff about him. Like I said, he only pitched in 5 games, and his arsenal, I think, was a fastball, sinker, changeup, and then there's a cutter. And in those, I mean, only 5 games of data, but specifically his cutter had a 46% whiff rate, which is cool, and his fastball and sinker are average in the high 90s. So I could see him, hopefully, eventually being potentially a high leverage arm. Certainly not immediately, but I could see him being a decent part of our bullpen. I know we're going to probably call up Baroa to start the year, I would imagine. So that would really fill out our bullpen. Granted, I would like more high leverage guys and more proven guys, but we got to do what we got to do. So, do you have any thoughts, I guess, about Zavala or Vargas? I mean, they were both not really even with the Diamondbacks for long, anyways. So,
Yeah, Sebi Zavala, I mean, 400 plus hitter with the Diamondbacks. He just wouldn't stop raking on our major league team when he was with us. But Carlos Vargas, obviously, really, really rough taste of the major leagues this year. Definitely got beat up a lot when he was up with the team. Nasty stuff. I think his slider is absolutely incredible. Some of the best raw stuff of any pitcher in our system. I mean, Justin Martinez is really the guy that I'm most excited about in our relief core that's coming up, and obviously Andrew Saalfrank, who we saw in that World Series run. But Carlos Vargas, nasty stuff. Definitely excited to see what the Mariners can get out of him with that pitching lab, which is just insane. Matt Brash, by the way, just his
yeah,
existence is probably pitching ninjas. I mean, he's just a highlight reel
yeah,
every time he comes out of there. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not excited at what you got back,
yeah.
but
In general, I'm not. I mean, like, I'm excited to see
yeah.
what Vargas does, but at the end of the day,
Hmm.
it's still a ridiculous return. So,
Yeah, end of the day, deal is done, and let's just hope that what you can get back from this deal is something good.
yeah,
So
that's all we
definitely
can hope on.
still excited what you can get out of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Um yeah, so that kind of does it though for the two transactions we have done. And that's part of why I wanted to have you
One
on.
more.
Yeah, well, oh, is there going to be another
There
one?
is Kyle Lewis. There is Kyle Lewis for Cooper Hummel
Oh,
before the
yeah.
2022 season,
Yeah, but that didn't really work out for
which
anyone
was
now, did it?
nothing.
So,
Yeah, but I mean, it still broke the hearts of some Mariners fans. But yeah, literally a nothing burger of a trade, pretty much. Just
yeah.
neither player did anything really for the most
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, so I guess now, one, I need Hazen to stay away from Jerry Dipoto. I need there to be a restraining order or something, because the fact that he's committed basically robbery 2 times in a row. I'm not gonna call the Seawall trade a robbery. It really wasn't, but um,
Yeah.
the Suarez one is. So
I mean, Ross Atkins needs to get a restraining order. That Gabriel Moreno trade might be one of the best trades I have ever seen
yeah,
for
I know.
Varsho.
You're pretty much gonna get like one of the best catchers in baseball for the foreseeable future, most likely, out of that. And then
Plus
Varsho did
Lourdes
nothing.
Gurriel.
Yeah, dude, I need uh you to have whoever makes the I need Hazen to take the job in Seattle. I need our ownership to quit and sell, and then we'll be all good. Easy peasy. We'll make the World Series then, I guess.
For
So
sure.
so I guess an off the field question, and since you have gotten into writing, I think this is specific to that. This off season has been quite a shitstorm, if we're going to be honest, when it comes to breaking news and all these random reports. And we're specifically talking about Mr. Morosi. What an offseason that dude's had. One has linked every free agent possible to the Mariners. So I guess we're getting everyone. And then the Otani plane fiasco had to have been the worst day of his life, because that didn't even happen. That was literally just straight up false. Uh, Dude doesn't have any credibility anymore, but he's not really the only one that has had a rough offseason. I think just baseball writing as a whole has had a rough offseason with linking players to places, or all these rumors going around to just not end up being true at all. Uh, I guess, how damaging do you feel this offseason's been to just, I guess, reporter integrity as a whole, and kind of what you're thinking?
I'm pretty sure the only writer that has gotten out of this whole thing pretty much unscathed is Jeff Passan,
Yeah,
and that's just because he does what I feel like a lot of writers should prioritize prioritize doing, and that is waiting until you know for sure, right?
yeah, agreed.
And I mean, what Morosi has done is, in my opinion, at least. I mean, obviously, I don't know him personally. Everything I've seen him do outside of the whole trade sphere has been awesome from him. He seems like a great guy. I like his interviews at least a lot. I think he does a great job. But yeah, it's really been damaging. Especially the Shohei Otani plane thing. I'm not really sure how you can mess that up. I think he's either on a plane or he isn't, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, was he the one
it's
who
been a
also
rough
said
time.
was he the one who said Yamamoto was going to be like at a Rams game with Otani like before he signed, or I think that was Heyman maybe. I don't remember who it was.
Was one of those guys, but it was just a whole mess, and the whole Kikuchi getting dinner for 50 people at a sushi restaurant.
Yeah.
And then Kikuchi went and made a post saying, "No, I could eat sushi for 50 people, but like,
Yeah.
I can't make a or I didn't make a reservation for that many." It's just a wild, wild series of events, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure we'll ever see an off season quite like it again. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
To,
just
to be
crazy.
fair, like I think a lot of it just hinges on the fact that two of like pretty much the biggest free agents we've seen in a long time with Otani, Yamamoto. I mean, everyone's competing to get that story, to really to get that break. And so I understand a little bit why they're maybe jumping on the gun faster than they should. However, it's been to the degree this year where, I mean, everyone literally is just talking about how we only like listen to what Passan. I always say Passan. It's so stupid. Passan and Rosenthal are like the only people we listen to, and if they say something, then we'll take it. But everyone else, like, we just don't even listen to anymore. And I don't see that as like a good thing for baseball writing. The fact that you can only trust like two people is a bit ridiculous. And it like it's not only Morosi. We saw what that dude who just took the Dodger Nation job, like saying that
Yeah,
Otani basically had
JT
signed.
someone.
Yeah, he said Otani had signed with the Blue Jays, and like that wasn't true clearly. And so, and everyone's like, oh, well, he just signed with Dodger Nation, and he's the editor, so he must be having some source, and some credibility, and it just was totally false. So it's just like I don't know, and I don't. It's not really the same thing, but I've also seen the same thing with that was such a stupid sentence. It's not the same thing, but it is the same thing. Uh, I've seen a similar thing with the baseball writers and like the Hall of Fame vote, and even that's under attack too, which rightfully so. Some of those ballots are horrible. Um, so it's just what do we do to get back to where we're literally not only trusting two reporters and that's it. Like I don't know what you do after that. So
Yeah, I'm not really sure how you get back to a pre plane fiasco writers world, I guess. And I mean, we even saw some of this heading back to last offseason with Arson Judge heading
yeah,
to the Giants.
yeah,
And I mean, I thought that was pretty horrible personally. I mean, a trusted writer, well, trusted for the most part in John Heyman, who jumped the gun on that as well. And uh, I mean, for the most part, these tweets are pretty inconsequential. But when it comes to like tracking flights across continents, that's just getting absurd, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
And I think that at that point, the writers kind of took a step back and were like, "Whoa, what's going on here? Like, how did we get to this point?" And we saw a big story written by Bob Nightingale that kind of took a look at the writers in the baseball world right now and the state that everything's in, and it took kind of a retrospective on where they go from there.
Hmm.
And I thought that was really good on USA Today. But yeah, I'm not quite sure where we go from here, but I think the real idea of how we move on is just taking more of a step towards journalistic integrity and waiting for moves to be official, right?
Hmm.
We're not supposed to be journalists and writers that jump the gun and make false reports that mislead people. We're supposed to provide news and get people excited when stuff goes right, right? I mean, we're here to try and build some excitement for baseball and do things the right way.
Hmm.
And I don't see how creating some false buzz to get more social media followers is accomplishing that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, since you started writing, I'm curious. You've mentioned in the DMs before a bit of like how I don't want to say having sources is the right way to put it, maybe, but like having ins to the team, into the Diamondbacks, not the Mariners. Duh. Um, so are you hoping that you are eventually to that point where you can, I guess, break like news for the Diamondbacks too? Are you hoping that is that kind of like the goal, or you do you prefer more of the uh I guess more general articles about player profiles and who would fit and that type of thing?
I would absolutely love to one day maybe break a signing or two or a trade. I think that would be awesome. But yeah, when I say sources, I have a lot of friends who are in the space, right? Who are affiliated with the team or right on the team, and maybe you'll hear that there's some traction behind certain things, or like, hey, there's some actual credibility behind this report. Like, yeah, maybe there is a little something to this and this, but when it comes to like this person just signed and nobody has posted it yet, no, I haven't gotten any of that kind of
Yeah.
information to this point at least. But hey, maybe one day, right?
Yeah.
Maybe if I'm not uh, on a different continent over here in Germany. Maybe when I'm back in the hub in Phoenix, I'll be able to get some more of that. But right now, I'm really enjoying doing my pieces, writing on potential fits and just creating different stories. Right, I wrote one that I really enjoyed on Perdomo and how Geraldo Perdomo went from, well, to be frank, one of the worst hitters in the league in 2022 to being an all-star in 2023 and
Hmm.
being our RBI king and one of the better shortstops in baseball. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we could have went to the World Series without him. So that's just some stuff that I've been really enjoying doing right now in my free time.
Nice. And you've also told me too that you've been able to even connect with some players here and there. So I guess as someone who either is getting into content or someone who is getting into writing, whatever medium you choose, because there's not like a wrong way to go about it. Um, is your kind of idea that like just reach out and just like I don't know, I guess message, like slide into DMs, is like that the best way? Or for people who want to gain that kind of connection or want to be able to, I guess, be more involved in the team kind of in that way, because it does do that. What's kind of been the best way for you to gain that connection with players, more or less? Because I would say I'm interested in that eventually. I would love to have like players on the pod. That's not something this year. That would be like a next off season thing, because I would, actually like
Yeah.
not be nervous potentially at that point. So yeah, I'm curious what that's how that's went with you.
Yeah, I mean, talking with players, I mean, I was just like pretty much anybody else. I got really excited when I first got to like interact with a few guys. And I mean, I don't have this like resume list of guys who I've gotten into contact with, but the few people that I have gotten to chat with, I mean, one of my favorites, I know he wasn't great for the D-backs this year, but Jace Peterson was awesome to talk to. He was a great guy that I had a few chats with, and he gave me a look into the team. And yeah, I'd say just like reach out, talk in the DMs, and I don't want people to like go flood the players because
No, no,
obviously
don't.
give them their
Not
their
saying
space
don't
as
do
well.
that. They're people as well. Yeah, so they're people
Yeah,
as well. So let's
it's
not flood DMs or anything like that. We want to be respectful of people's time.
yeah. Uh, but that's honestly how I did it. I mean, I'm a member of the community. I would hope that they maybe got an idea that I'm one of the I try to keep myself to a respectable platform, right? I
Mhm.
try to put nice stuff up and stuff that's viewed as pretty cool for the Diamondbacks community and the fan base. So I'd hope that they maybe took a look at that and saw, hey, maybe this is a guy who I can actually chat with, who's not gonna go like all fangirl in the
Yeah,
DMs,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
That I think that's my exact worry about, because the other day when I did the stream, someone's like, "When are you gonna have a player on?" I'm like, well, first I would need to find out a way to keep my nerves in check for that. That intimidates the hell out of me, just to think of having like even just a Saucedo or whatever on the pod. I just, dude, I don't even know if I could do that. I definitely couldn't do it right now, and because I just have to be honest with myself. Not even from a fanboy perspective where I'd be like freaking out in that way. I would just be so like intimidated to talk to someone who does that for a living. And I guess I don't know. It's just that extra step, right? Like I've talked to some bigger creators and whatever, and like that's cool, and I was nervous for that. But it's like when you talk to a player, like that's just a whole different, like literally a whole different league to think about. I definitely couldn't wrap my head around that at this point for sure. But we'll hope in like a year's time, maybe we'll be at that point. We'll see. So yeah, to kind of end it off, I asked this question to everyone, so I'm going to ask it to you as well. Every time I have a new guest on who has not been asked this before, two-part question. and you may know this already. So first, if you were a Major League Baseball player, would you prefer to have walk-up music and be a hitter, so it plays more often, but it's only like 15 seconds worth, or would you rather be a closer, get the walkout, get the production, all that? Your song plays more, but you're only doing it like 40 to 60 times a year. And then what is the song that you're choosing?
So one of my favorite questions that I've seen,
Yes,
honestly.
thank you.
Um, and I'm pretty sure that everybody has said this so far, but man, would I absolutely love to be a closer,
Yeah,
right? I mean, not only did I pitch, and I love that, and I love the idea of just throwing the baseball and standing there on that mound, that island in the middle of the field, but I mean the fireworks and the lights going crazy and your
yeah,
music playing, that's just awesome to think about. And I did go back in advance and take a look at what the other guests said, and I'm sorry to say that the Mariner Mojo's boys stole my song,
wow. Okay.
"Rock You Like a Hurricane" from the Scorpions that I
Nice.
actually used when I used to play. But
We got
I
some
do
beef.
have a fallback that would actually no, I love those guys, but one of my other favorite songs that I think would be epic, which is "Kickstart My Heart" by Motley Crue.
Nice.
And man, the guitar on that sounds awesome, and just the hearing the crowd go like, "Oh yeah, yeah," that
Yeah.
would be incredible.
Yeah, you got to pick
But
something for the crowd to
yeah,
get into.
also, exactly right. Get the guys into it,
Yeah.
and I feel like that gets you amped up more than anything, right? Hearing the whole crowd rally behind your song.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that would be awesome, and yeah, but "Rock You Like a Hurricane" also amazing song, gets you hype, crazy cool guitar. I learned how to play it. I'm a rock guy, so I absolutely love those like classic and like heavier rock songs. So
Yeah.
yeah, Motley Crue. That's my answer.
Okay. Very cool. Well, we got it. So, well, I appreciate you coming on, and it was really nice
Thank
talking to
you.
you about if we have any future Diamondbacks Mariners transactions. I'll have you on again to talk about it. Hopefully not, because
Absolutely.
at this point I'm kind of over it happening. So don't really. I did, like I said, I need a restraining order. Hazen cannot contact Jerry DePoto ever again, or else he will be arrested and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. So, with that said, that's going to be this episode of the You Love to See a Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, then hit a like, subscribe, comment. Maybe who else you would like to see on the pod. That would be cool. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, or Amazon Music, and who cares about Samsung, but there's that, then rate I think you can rate it there. You can follow the show as well, so every time a new episode comes out it'll pop up for you, and that would be very much appreciated as well. So once again, thank you, Aaron, for joining. My name is Jake. I am your host, and I will see you next time.